Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Welcome to everybody tonight. It's good to see all of you. I want to make a little announcement right at the start for those who will be watching later on YouTube, because I was totally unaware. Gracias, Karen. Thank you, Karen, for bringing this up, because I wouldn't have even thought. They're going to do registration for fall on Monday.
Ooh.
This coming Monday, 8 a.m. If you were expecting a printed brochure, kiss that goodbye. It's not around. So thank you, Karen, because I emailed them and I said, hey, you know, folks haven't seen anything, but they heard through the grapevine. They said, oh, yes, in fact, that's correct. And then the response I got was that somehow marketing is handling this, but they're not sure how they're going to contact people. So I was very grateful to know, because I really need to contact people who may want to start fall, who are in other parts of the country, and, you know, take the summer off. And had they not said that, I would not have known. So you'll be getting an extra email, because I'm just going to do a blanket email to everybody. So that people are aware, because I don't know when you should be getting an email from marketing, but you know, obviously nobody's seen that yet, and they are not going to put things out this time around. I'm a little confused. Well, no, I guess I'm not. I don't know. Did they used to mail those, or did they just have the brochures at the centers?
No, they used to mail them, and then you could also pick them up at the senior center.
I wonder if there's a budget thing where they just.
Wow. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean,
don't know.
They've had to cancel all their classes over and over.
Yeah, well, so in any event, you know, and you know, people aren't going to get bumped because of the Zoom thing. It's going to say like this ridiculous 100. We're not going to get 100 people, but you know, you don't get bumped because there's not this artificial, you know, 18, 20 number. So don't worry about, oh, did I hit the button in time? But do make sure you register for fall if you want to take fall. Because I think, what is it, 2 weeks before classes start? So this would be probably midway through August. If they don't see enough people signed up, then they start to cancel classes. So, you know, just so you know. Okay, but I'll send out a couple of reminders on that. And I will make sure I put the website on how you can, you know, what to go to register. Since you don't have a, you know, piece of paper, and if you didn't bookmark it, you don't have a brochure. So we'll take care of all of that. Vale, muy bien. Bienvenidos, vamos a practicar muchísimas cosas. Vamos a empezar, vamos a practicar con leer, con por y para, con preguntas de la película, con muchísimas cosas. We may have a bit more bitten off than we can chew, but we'll try to fit in everything we can. Vamos a empezar con un ejercicio de calentar. We're going to start with a warm-up drill. Un ejercicio de calentar. ¿Saben lo que es? ¿Saben ustedes cómo se dice, cómo se llama este aparato? ¿Cómo se llama este aparato?
Coffee machine?
Coffee machine, ¿cómo se dice?
Máquina de café.
Es una cafetera. Es una cafetera. Cafetera es coffee pot or whatever machine it is that makes your coffee, okay? La cafetera es una cafetera de Keurig. ¿Vale? Sí. Y a little machine or a teapot would be tetera. For té. Tetera. Cafetera, tetera. Vale. Bueno. Es una cafetera de marca Keurig. Quiero que ustedes describan, mejor decir, quiero que ustedes describan la cafetera. I want you guys to describe the cafetera. Describan, por favor, la cafetera. ¿Cómo es? What's it like?
Azul.
Es de color azul y blanco.
Es azul. Es azul, pues, y de plateada, you know, kind of a silvery. Sí, no es plata de verdad, not real silver. Sí, pero sí, un poquito, sí, de color de un color plateado y azul. Principalmente es una cafetera azul. ¿Qué más podemos decir? What more can we say?
La cafetera es la máquina muy importante por muchas personas en la mañana y yo mucho gusto. Mucho
Te gusta mucho, ¿no?
gusto, yes, te gusta.
Para mí es esencial también. Es esencial por la mañana tener una cafetera. Porque sirve para hacer café, claro, para la mañana. Cada día hago 2 tazas de café. Bien. ¿De qué tamaño es? ¿De qué tamaño es? Tamaño es...
No es grande.
No es muy grande, especialmente para Keurig. Para esta marca, fíjense, para esta marca, I'm comparing, para esta marca es una cafetera bastante pequeña.
Sí.
Bastante pequeña. Puedo usar mi café o las tacitas que se llaman pods en inglés. No importa, los dos, ¿de verdad? Es
¿Enchufe?
tengo que enchufarla. Claro, I have to plug it in, sí. ¿Cómo se dice? It's electric.
Oh.
Oh,
Es un
electrónico.
cognado. Él es eléctrica.
Eléctrico.
Es una cafetera eléctrica, es un modelo eléctrico, ¿vale? Sí. ¿Cuántas tazas puedo hacer con este modelo?
Una taza.
Una sola taza, una taza a la vez, at a time. Una taza a la vez. Muy bien, pesa mucho. Es una cafetera pesada. Heavy.
Yeah.
Es pesada. Muy bien.
No es.
Es pesada. Pues, para mí sí es pesada. Ok. Vale. Magnífico. Ok. Vamos a pasar a otras cosas. Quiero leer un poquito ese artículo de Sin Cajeros. I do want to take a look at that Sin Cajeros, the article, because we missed it last week. Shifting gears a little. If you have it printed out, go look for it real quickly while I'm talking. I am going to put it up on the share screen as well, because, you know, maybe you don't have it handy. Maybe you were out of town the week I told you to print it and you forgot. All kinds of things can happen. I know how that is. Entiendo perfectamente. Voy a engrandecer todo. I'm going to make it bigger so that it is much easier to read. And I've got some words highlighted just because they're words that maybe if you didn't have an opportunity to look it up, you could figure it out from, again, those prefixes or suffixes attached to them. So I'm going to get this up on a share screen really soon. And we're going to read this, see if you have questions about it. Ok, aquí vamos. Sí, y el título dice, no es necesario pagar. Amazon abre una tienda de comestibles sin cajero y caja es box. Entonces cajero es
Cashier.
cashier, checkout, yeah. Sometimes you'll see a sign that will just say caja, and that means the checkout area, even though caja really means box. Cajero would be checkout, cashier. Comestibles comes from comer. Comestibles, las cosas que comemos. La comida. Comestibles is a little more sophisticated word for la comida. Ok. El gigante de las compras en línea Amazon tiene un nuevo proyecto. Planea deshacerse de la línea de pago del supermercado. They plan on not making something, but deshacer. They plan on getting
rid of.
Yep. Catching up.
Getting rid of. Deshacerse is to get rid of. Literally to unmake yourself, to unburden yourself of this. So we would say getting rid of.
Sure.
I'm totally wrong.
Plans to get rid of the payment line, the cashier's lane, el supermercado. Amazon abrió su primer supermercado sin cajero, without cashier. Abrió su primer, they opened their first. Los compradores pueden tomar leche o huevos y salir sin esperar en la fila. La fila, the line. Okay. Fila is think single file, right? Ni siquiera necesitan abrir sus billeteras. Ni siquiera is one of those things you have to know that as a group of words. We always use those two together. Ni siquiera. If you're going to use siquiera, it has to be preceded by ni. Ni siquiera means not even. And that's kind of an implied, well, it's not kind of implied, it is. Compradores, buyers, is what's implied. They don't even need, ni siquiera necesitan abrir. They don't even need to open their wallets. Exacto. Es la última señal de que Amazon se toma en serio la sacudida del mercado de comestibles de 800,000 millones. Okay. It's taking the food market, the sector that sells food, the grocery part of the market, in seriously. They're taking it seriously. Se toma en serio. Ok, a ver, la nueva tienda abrió el 25 de febrero en la ciudad natal de Amazon, Seattle. Natal is related to that word you know as nacer. Nacer, to be born. So ciudad natal is the
hometown.
Yeah, the city where Amazon was born.
Based. Yeah,
its birthplace. Its native city. Its original city. Los compradores escanean. We use escanear. There's a borrowed word from technology. Escanean una aplicación de teléfono inteligente para ingresar a la tienda. Ingresar es como entrar. Entrar. Las cámaras y los sensores rastrean lo que se saca de los estantes. You're going to see some set phrases.
Yeah.
We've worked on. Yeah. Cameras and sensors, they track. Rastrear is track or trace something. Lo que se saca. What is taken off out of. Sacar is to take out. Estantes are shelves. Son shelves.
Marilyn,
Sí.
low-K, why the low?
Why the low? The cameras scan that which,
Low-K.
meaning all the stuff. And so when they say lo que, it's like our saying what. Not just que, but lo que. Because you're literally taking things off of the shelves. So what you take off is expressed as lo que. What is taken off, lo que se saca.
Thank you.
Lo que se saca, and there is one of those impersonal, kind of passive voice uses of se. What is taken off the shelves. Lo is here considered not a masculine pronoun. It's what we call a neuter. Yeah, it's one of actually a frequent use of a neutral pronoun, but you generally see it as lo que, or lo with a descriptive word. But in this case, it's lo que, what. Los artículos se cargan a una cuenta de Amazon después de salir. Okay, se cargan, they're charged. Oh, there's another se, and it's another passive. The articles are charged. Se cargan a una cuenta de Amazon. They're charged to your Amazon account. Después de salir, after leaving. Me encanta la conveniencia de agarrar. Agarrar es grab. Agarrar is used to grab people, to grab things. Agarrar. De agarrar y salir, literalmente. Grab and go, literally. So somebody says, I love that convenience. Me encanta la conveniencia. Dijo Art Kuryuki, quien vive en Seattle, gastó $15 en comestibles poco después de que abriera la tienda. That de que abriera la tienda is after the store opened. That abriera is a special thing called a past subjunctive. So don't worry that you don't know how to form it. But you know it looks like abrir, right?
Mm.
So you know it means open. It means after the store has opened. Okay.
He saved money. He's saying he saved money. He like
No,
No.
just that he spent $15.
oh, he spent.
Spent. Gastó. Ah, sí. Not saved, but gastó, spent. Gastar is to spend money, not spend time.
Okay.
Spend time is pasar tiempo o pasar un rato. But gastar is for spending money. Un nuevo tipo de tienda de comestibles. La nueva tienda se llama Amazon Go Grocery. Forma parte de la cadena chain de 2 años de 25 tiendas de conveniencia Amazon Go. El supermercado es 5 veces más grande que las tiendas de conveniencia. So it's 5 times bigger than a typical convenience store. So like your 7-Eleven, you know, Stop and Shop, all those kind of places. Quick Mart. También almacena. Almacén is a warehouse. So if we turn it into a verb, it means to stock up or to store up. también almacena mucho más que los refrescos y sándwiches que se encuentran en Amazon Go. So they also stock many more, a lot more than just soft drinks and sandwiches, which are found. Se encuentran. There's another se encuentran, which one finds. Now that one finds is a plural, se encuentran, because they're talking about refrescos and sandwiches. So these things, refrescos, sandwiches, they are found. And that's why that has to be for a passive voice, se encuentran, a plural. Bien. Cameron James ayuda a supervisar las tiendas físicas de Amazon. Dijo que la tecnología de la tienda tenía que ser cambiada para comprar comestibles. He said the technology for the store had to be changed to buy foodstuffs. A la gente le gusta. Oh, the a la gente tells you who the le is. People like. Gente is just your general word for people, but it's a singular word. A la gente le gusta tocar. Tocar. They like to touch. Tocar algunos tomates antes de elegir los que quieren, before choosing the ones they want. So in other words, people have to handle the items, right? This is something they were not used to in the other stores. Solo necesitan que se les cobre por los que toman. And this is one of those se les cobre, which is the accidental, it happened to you. Cobrar is to charge somebody. They only need to charge them for what they take, not what they touch. Okay. Solo necesitan que se les cobre por los que toman. Notice how they use por. Charge it in exchange for. Por often means in exchange for something. When money changes hands, when a compliment changes hands. When you do one thing to get something else, that's an exchange, and that you need to use por for that. Okay. No se pesa nada en la tienda. Nothing. Oh, we have the word pesado. Something was heavy. Pesar means the action of doing weighing. And they're talking about nada, nothing at all. Nothing is weighed. No se pesa nada. And notice they start with that verb phrase. They don't say nothing is weighed. No se pesa nada. Nada comes after the verb. This is quite common. No se pesa nada en la tienda. Una naranja de sangre, blood orange, cuesta 53 centavos. Una banana es de 19 centavos. Vale. Amazon no es nuevo en comestibles. En 2017 compró Whole Foods y sus 500 tiendas, 500 stores. También ha estado expandiendo su servicio de entrega de comestibles en línea. Also, and here's the present perfect. They've also been expanding their delivery, food delivery service online, en línea. I am noticing more and more as I read that it used to be people only said en línea, online. Now I'm starting to notice that some newscasters and some print media will use that word online literally and just borrow the word. So you may hear people either use online, which they'll pronounce a little bit funny, or en línea. Okay. A ver, sin embargo, nevertheless, sin embargo, todavía está muy por detrás de su rival Walmart. They're still very much behind, sí, behind their rival Walmart, el supermercado más grande del país, que tiene más de, un número, ¿cómo se dice este número? 4,000.
4,000.
4,000.
700.
4,700 tiendas, exacto. El servicio de comestibles en línea de Walmart también ha sido popular entre los clientes. Has also been popular. We only talked a little bit about this present perfect. Ha sido, has been. That sido comes from ser. You take the ER off of ser, you've only got the S left. It's an ER verb, we put ido on, has been. Ha sido. Ok. Los compradores compran en línea y luego conducen. They didn't use manejan. They used the other verb, drive.
Drive.
Conducen a una tienda para recoger. Recoger. Pick up. Recoger is pick up. That does not have the nasty connotation of coger. It's just recoger. Pick up. Recoger sus pedidos. Pedidos comes from pedir. Pedir is to ask for or to order. To pick up their orders. And notice how they use para. Conducen a una tienda para recoger. They later drive to a store in order to pick up. And notice, we have para dividing two activities. Para is dividing,
Driving.
driving, and
Picking up.
Yeah.
and we use para because what has to happen first?
Driving.
And the recoger happens after you do that. It's sequential. When one action follows the other, when they're not all at the same time, you need that para word there. Para recoger in order to pick up. So you're seeing some little things with por and para. You're seeing a lot of things with se. Our magic word se. Amazon también planea abrir otro tipo de tienda de comestibles en Los Ángeles, California. En algún momento, at some point. This is indefinite. En algún momento. No sabemos cuándo. We don't know when. En algún momento de este año. Sin embargo, no utilizará, and that's a future will not use, no utilizará la tecnología sin cajero allí. They will not use cashier-less technology there. Amazon no diría si planea abrir más tiendas Amazon Go Grocery. Dijo que no hay planes para llevar la tecnología a las tiendas Whole Foods. They say that there are no plans in order to take the
Technology to Whole Foods.
Yeah, and here llevar is not wear clothes, because we're not talking about clothes, la ropa no, but moving that technology over, carrying it over. And when you transport something from one, area to another, it's Llevar. You take or carry or transport. Vale, comprar verduras y Oreos. Oreos. We don't have a translation. No hay traducción. Es fácil. Ok, la mayoría de las frutas y verduras de la nueva tienda provienen de los mismos proveedores de Whole Foods. They are provided or they come from the same providers, same vendors as Whole Foods, dijo James. También tiene productos de la marca de la tienda Whole Foods. Un número, number.
365.
365. Es la marca, es el nombre
No sé.
de la marca, de la tienda Whole Foods. Sin embargo, también vende Oreos, Cheez-Its y otras cosas que no están permitidas en el supermercado natural. Vale. Las familias pueden comprar juntas. Families can buy together. Un teléfono escanea a todos.
Telephone. It
One
scans-
telephone scans
all.
everybody. Cualquier cosa, cualquier means any old thing. Any at all. Cualquier cosa, anything. Cualquier cosa que las otras personas agarren y dejen es leave behind. La tienda se agregará a una cuenta. The store will add, and that's a future, you wouldn't know. Agregar is to add. Think of things in the aggregate. When we talk about things in English in the aggregate, we mean on a really large scale, right? Agregar is to add, to make something bigger. And they put that in a future. Will be but they put it with a se, so they're making it passive. It will be added to one bill. Se agregará, it will be added a una cuenta. So you see the se thing for the passive voice is often used when you talk about things like se cierra la tienda, the store is closed, but it's used really liberally in writing, more so than in speaking. We use it a lot for things like the store is closed, the store is open, this is for sale, but in writing, they use it a lot for passive voice. Los compradores, sin embargo, no deberían agarrar cosas para extraños. Buyers, however, should not grab things for strangers. Extraños. Amazon advierte que agarrar un artículo para otra persona significa que se le cobrará si se retira con él. What do you think that's saying? Amazon warns that.
You pick it up for somebody else, you're paying.
Yeah, exacto, Keith. Tienes razón. That grabbing an article for another person significa, means that one will be charged if one walks out. Retirarse is to withdraw, as in leaving or withdrawing from a class or withdrawing from a seminar. In this case, you're retiring from the store, you're getting out of the store. So you will be charged if that person walks out with it. And you give it to them. Okay. A ver, otras tiendas están compitiendo. Están compitiendo. They are competing, and they mean right now, as we speak. Están compitiendo para ponerse al día. Ponerse al día es como catch up, get up to date. Ponerse, put oneself to the day, is an expression that means to get current, to get up and running, to be up to date. Están probando su propia tecnología sin cajero. They are trying out. Probar is to try something out. Whether you put clothing on to see if it fits, or you put food in your mouth just a teeny tiny bit to see if you like it, that's probar. So they're trying out their own technology, sin cajero, that is cashierless. A principios de febrero, at the start of February, 7-Eleven dijo que está probando una tienda sin cajero para los empleados dentro de sus oficinas en Irving, Texas. Here again, we're using para, not por. Para, because the recipient of this service is the employees,
Employees of the
empleados.
home office in Irving, Texas.
Right. So because the employees are receiving that service, they're the recipient, we need para, not por. Okay. No a todos les gustan. Not everybody
Likes.
likes. Las tiendas sin cajero. Not everybody likes cashierless stores. Sin embargo, los legisladores y defensores son críticos con las tiendas sin cajero. Dicen que las tiendas discriminan a las personas de bajos ingresos. Bajos ingresos, low income. Ingresos is the money coming into you. Bajos ingresos, low income. Los clientes deben tener una tarjeta de crédito o una cuenta bancaria. So you need to have a credit card or a bank card, debit card. Una cuenta bancaria. A bank card, so a debit card. Desde entonces, Amazon has permitido que los clientes paguen en efectivo. Amazon has allowed people to pay
In cash.
en cash en sus tiendas de conveniencia. La compañía dijo que los compradores pueden hacer lo mismo en la tienda de comestibles. Tienen que pedirle a un trabajador que los deje entrar. Well, you need to have a person actually let you come in. Deje entrar is allow them to come in. So if you have no debit card, no card to scan, right, how does that work? And Amazon does have a cash system. Somebody needs to let you in. They're not telling us yet how they do that. Las tiendas también redujeron el trabajo de los cajeros. The stores also reduced the cashier's work. James dijo que la nueva tienda de Amazon tiene varias docenas de trabajadores, has several dozen. Docena is about a 12er. Docena is a dozen. And varias would mean several dozen. Si bien las tiendas sin cajero eliminan la molestia, the bother, the nuisance, la molestia de esperar en la fila para pagar, también mata algunas alegrías del supermercado. If cashierless stores eliminate the annoyance of waiting in line in order to pay, para pagar, they also kill some of the joys of the supermarket. There they mean mata, kills, literally. It kills some of the joys of shopping in the supermarket. No hay nadie para empacar comestibles. There's nobody to do what?
Bag it.
Extra groceries.
Bag it. Yeah. No baggers. Tampoco. Now they're saying a negative word. Tampoco. Not either. It's the opposite of también. Tampoco. Tampoco hay mostrador. There is no counter either. Carnicería.
Butcher shop.
Butcher shop.
Butcher, no fish shop.
Y pescadería.
Counter maybe.
Salir de la tecnología es genial en teoría, in theory. It's great. Asesora a empresas minoristas. Minoristas are retailers. Bishop agregó, sin embargo, que los clientes deciden dónde comprar basándose en otros factores, además de la velocidad. Customers decide where to buy stuff, basing it on
Other factors.
factors besides velocidad. Quickness. Speed. Speed would be velocidad, right? Velocidad, velocity, speed.
We want speed.
Aún así, dijo Bishop, es difícil para las compañías de comestibles ignorar a Amazon. El gigante en línea tiene el efectivo y la tecnología para experimentar. No se dan por vencidos. No se dan por vencidos. Yeah, they don't give up. Dar por vencidos to give up. The giant has the giant, and they're referring to Amazon. The giant online has the cash and the technology to play around with this, right? Eso es todo. Eso es todo. Okay. Entonces, so we had some examples of por and para. We had some examples of se as that passive kind of voice. Varias cosas. Bien? Vale. So you see how some of these terms are used. Okay.
So, Marilyn, just a quick question.
Dime.
On the first paragraph on the first page, la línea de pago, why isn't that pagar?
La línea de pago. It's the line for payment. That's just the way they say.
Oh, I see.
It's a different way of saying cajero, but it's more than cajero. Cajero is where you pay, right? The machine and the person who operates the machine to check you out. But línea de pago is the line you wait in to pay. And pago there is the word payment.
So it's more of an adjective than it is a verb.
In a way, yeah. Payment line. So the line you wait in.
Okay.
Exacto. Es buena pregunta, sí. Línea de pago. Ok. ¿Tienen más preguntas o no? No? You could probably figure a lot of that out, but you'll notice they use that se a lot. And because this is an article about business practices, they used a lot of that se as passive voice. This is the kind of article, or if it were a snippet on a news show, let's say a nightly news program, again, this is the typical kind of environment where you would use this se impersonal a lot, because you're talking about companies, how business is done. It's a little more formal speech. So that gives you a little taste of that, but it has lots of snippets of different things we've used. Okay. Bien. How many of you, cuántos de ustedes, how many of you got a chance to watch El Tiempo Entre Costuras?
Oh, yeah.
It's largo, it's long. It's a series. So I want to know, first of all, if that's something you think you want to watch the next episode next week, and I kind of leave that up to you. Before I decide that, I'll give you time to either put things in the chat box now or email me later. It is difficult to understand, but do you notice how much more you relied on visual cues? And you're picking up a word here and there, right?
That would be an understatement.
Okay. It's, now I did try to find, there used to exist a really good version that had the actual subtitles
Ours had the subtitles.
Titles.
I got some
in English,
In English,
English.
but in
yes.
Spanish.
It would be
There
nice
used
have
to be a
this.
good one, and I think because it's not in our region for producing DVDs,
Hmm.
which is why if I were to purchase this, even as a streaming thing, I would be paying upwards of $60 or more
Ooh.
for one, for one show. So it's a little rich for my taste. There used to be a YouTube that was sequential and did have Spanish subtitles. That is no longer out there. They do have, oddly enough, somebody in Greece who's got Greek subtitles, and you can put on Spanish subtitles. But when you're superimposing the Greek and then the Spanish on top of the Greek, it becomes tough to read. I'm just saying. And the other issue with that is that also when they list those videos, they are wildly out of sequence. So you have to piece together the story, and there's not like a number to tell you, oh, I should go look for number 8 because I just finished 7. That doesn't exist. So unfortunately, this was the best venue to watch this in. So even without having that, you could guess what was going on, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
more un poquito? Okay. So, take a little time to ponder. If we have too many people who are totally uncomfortable with it, we can drop that. But I wanted you to get a feel for something that's like a super popular show, because this is a very popular series in all of Europe. It's very, very popular. The book, I read the book long ago, and it's one of those things like we do. They took the book, said, right, this will make a great TV series, and it'll go on like Game of Thrones for weeks and weeks and weeks. So okay, let's see.
So was it my settings, or was it on everybody's that you got to hear Tempe Dodge commercials every 5 minutes for a minute?
Oh, you know what?
Yep.
That if you do not have, yes, and you know what? Thank you for saying that, Keith, because since I have a YouTube account, I don't get the commercials.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a settings thing or an account type deal.
So you know what? And that may be a factor too, that you may say, my husband, if it's got commercials, he's not watching it.
Yeah.
If he can't fast forward through it, he's not watching it. I get it. I live with that. I get it.
Yeah.
So that may be a factor too, besides the barrier of it being kind of fast.
Maybe you're lost.
But it is a pretty cool story. But let's take a look at some questions. Vamos a ver. And I'm not going to send you off into little groups, because this was, I asked you to do something hard. So we're going to make this much, much, much easier. And I will also say there are some contextual things here that have to do with the society in Spain at that time, the war that is to come during this movie, because, yeah, it's going to be this life and death thing. Well, you kind of get that with the opening, right? Las pistolas, no? All those great big pistols strapped on, yeah.
Yeah.
That actually comes up later.
That was a little bizarre.
That part comes later in the story. That was a preview. That was a hook for the audience. Okay. El tiempo entre costuras. Costuras has to do with sewing. And it's really the time, they call it the time in between when they translate it, but it's really the time between stitches. Costurera is somebody who sews for a living. And they have another word for that. But you can see these. I'm going to make these a little bit bigger so that they're easier for you to read, so you don't have to squint. I put it on 12 font for you to go home because, you know, you don't need help for the blind when you're reading it at home. But on a screen, you better have it big type, yeah? This little screen. Ok. Entonces, ahora para practicar en español. ¿Quién es la protagonista?
Se llama Sira.
Cira. Es Cira. Protagonista es, ¿cómo se dice en inglés? Character. No se dice carácter. There is a word carácter, but the word carácter in Spanish indicates the personality traits that someone has. Okay, so, you know, the good and bad personality traits, that would be carácter. Okay, but character in inglés, como en una película, en un drama, es protagonista. Se llama Sira. ¿Qué significa ser modista? Modista.
Would that be fashion?
Has to do with fashion. And ista tells you that it's somebody who does something for a living.
Dressmaking.
Dressmaking, exacto.
Fashion.
Modista is we might say stylist, we might say designer, we might say, we borrow a French word, haute couture. Yeah, haute couture from French literally is high cut, right? Sewing, you know, something to order. So modista es una persona que cose, a person who sews.
Ropa.
Pero ropa, sí, importante, ropa.
Para las personas más ricas.
A veces sí, a veces no. Es una cosa ser modista muy famosa como Coco Chanel, que era muy rica. Es otra cosa hablar de una modista humilde. You can just be a dressmaker who is not a Coco Chanel, right? Así es. And you'll know, and actually this kind of follows the idea of what a Spanish Coco Chanel would be. Pretty much same exact time period. So if you're ladies, maybe the guys don't care, but Coco Chanel era modista francesa muy famosa, y esta es una película de otra modista. Okay. Y una modista diseña. A modista also designs. So she designs, makes the pattern, does all the sewing. A modista generally does more than just sew a couple pieces of fabric together. They do the concept to the execution. Okay, modista. ¿Quién le enseñó a Sira a coser?
La madre. Su madre.
Su madre le enseñó. Her mom taught her. Su madre le enseñó a coser. Su mamá. ¿Cuándo tiene lugar la historia de la película? Y más o menos.
Early 1930s, just before the Spanish Civil
Exacto. Sí, Keith. En los años 30. En los años 30. In the 30s. If you want to say the 30s, los años 30. Los años 60, the 60s, ¿sí? Los años 80, the 80s. Así es. Okay.
But then you'd have to say something like en el siglo pasado, because you're talking.
Tienes razón, sí. Entonces, Hay otra manera de expresar esta idea. Tiene lugar en 1934, 33, más o menos, ¿verdad?
Antes de guerra, the war.
Antes de la guerra. Este episodio, sí, muy importante, antes de la guerra. Antes de la guerra. I will send you for homework about a 10-minute video that talks about the Spanish Civil War, and it is a cartoon.
Oh, I like that.
However, in a very encapsulated way, it gives you the short and thoroughly confusing story, because it was, of the Spanish Civil War, which was a civil war, which is like, you know, we think Civil War, we think North and South, slavery, slaveholders, right? All that. This was very complicated. It was multiple parties, multiple ideologies, religious views, conservative versus liberal versus anarchist. Every possible political flavor was thrown into this, which was why it happened, partially. A big reason of why it happened. Because there was so much division, and then it degenerated very quickly to a violent situation. So even though it's a cartoon, it will pull things as simply as you can to give you a general idea of why this happened. And it's fairly accurate.
Chevy Chase on Weekend Update still says that Franco is
Still dead? Yeah.
Exactly. That is exactly right. And the first time I went was a year after Franco died, which I thought, this is great. This is democracy in action, and I get to go there. And there were many people walking around with machine guns
Ooh.
in many places where I went. And I'd say, look at these little guys with the patent leather hats and the machine guns. They are Guardia Civil. Wow, they really are Guardia Civil. They really do wear little patent leather, little three-cornered hats that look like George Washington, but with the backwards. And yes, these guys were standing around the court buildings and such.
And they have real bullets in the guns.
And they have little bullets in the guns. And they did not use rubber bullets at that time. No. However, it's very, very interesting. The first time I went over, because it was only a year after the old man had died, when you saw monuments and placards of places where there have been famous battles, all of these placards pointed out how brave the nationalists, which were the Phalangists, which were Franco's party, how noble these people were who died for the cause. If you go today, it's very revisionist in many areas. Revisionist in the sense that they show the other side of the story, and the nationalist Phalangist side is extremely downplayed. Now, it depends on where you go too. There are people who are still, if their family was very dyed in the wool, you know, acolytes of Franco, that's still out there. But I would say for the most part, those who were not pro-Franco are exceedingly vocal now because they were suppressed for so many years. So when you go into the museums that are sponsored by the government, they'll have plaques to talk about. This is the other side of the war that was not allowed to come out. And every single professor that my daughter has had at ASU who was from a Spanish family instead of a Mexican family, they all know which relatives fought on which side, who died. They don't all know where they're buried. A lot of them are in mass graves, and they still talk about it. And the grandchildren who never knew those grandparents still talk about it. So it is still if you are to go to Spain, you do have to be somewhat careful of how you talk about it, because you may be talking to somebody who was shot by either side. And there are still very bad feelings on both sides, and a lot of bad stuff that was done on both sides. That's the way it was. But this movie is in the run-up to it. Okay. Número 5. Vamos a ver, número 5. ¿Quién es Doña Manuela? ¿Quién es Doña Manuela en la película? ¿Quién es?
La jefe de madre de Cira.
Es la jefe de la mamá de Cira. Es la jefe del taller. Taller es shop. Taller es shop. This is a very general word we use for any shop whatsoever. If you go to a place where a guy hand makes guitars, bends the wood, molds it, does the varnishing, all that, that's a taller. If you go to a place where they put new tires on your car, that's a taller. Taller is a very general term used for a shop. And generally it's a shop where things, not just where you buy stuff, but where things are fixed or made, often by hand. Not necessarily, but often by hand. Okay. El taller de la Doña Manuela, que está en Madrid, el taller.
Madrid.
Su taller está en Madrid, en el vecindario adinerada, in the moneyed neighborhood. She calls it adinerada, which maybe you didn't catch, because she didn't say rico. She used the higher falutin word, which is adinerado. They take the word dinero and they make it into adinerado. Voy a escribirlo. I'm going to write it up on the screen there. Adinerado. Adinerado means the moneyed class. So, you know, this was her introduction to what it looks like to be around people who have money, because that's who they sewed for. Okay, ¿quién es Paquita? Hay otra mujer que se llama Paquita.
La amiga de Cira.
Es la amiga de Cira. Es la amiga de Cira. Ella también trabaja en el taller de Doña Manuela.
So ¿cómo se dice coworker?
Es otra empleada, es la colega. She's a colleague. Es la colega. A coworker is colega. Es la colega de Cira y su mamá. Y ella cojea, she has a limp. You may wonder why they put this in. Actually, well,
my guess was maybe was polio.
In those days, there were a lot of people who had infirmities who just had to live with it. And it was very much noted when you went to places like Spain, even really into the 1960s. That just started to peter out when I went there. In Spain, there are words for people who limp. There are words for people who only have one arm. I kid you not. There are terms for people who only have one eye. I kid you not. This is because, sadly, because it was a very poor country and kind of moving from agrarian to large factory work, there were people who had infirmities because of maybe polio, maybe disease, maybe from farm accidents, factory accidents. And this was not an unusual thing to encounter people with disabilities of various types. And not just because they got ill, but accidents that happened in factories. It was a very common thing. The lottery tickets that they sell in Spain are still done for the benefit of, or by an organization for the blind. Still, to this day. It is called ONCE, Organización Nacional de Ciegos Españoles, National Organization of Spanish Blind People, because you used to see people literally who would just beg on the corners, who had disabilities. So the fact that she's, cojea, she limps, is kind of significant because this happened a lot because of the poverty of the country. Okay. ¿Qué detalles sabemos de su novio? ¿Qué detalle? What detail?
El cubanista.
Es comunista. El novio, el marido, el esposo de Paquita, el novio, es comunista. So people who worked in a shop setting quite often belonged to a union, and if you belonged to a union, you were probably either aligned with the socialists or with the communists. Or some of the other little groups that went in between there. But they would have been the more left-leaning groups because these groups tried to help out the workers. This is just getting out of the sweatshop era, literally. So it would have been a big deal that her husband is comunista. They would want you to note that if you watched for later parts in this series. ¿A dónde van, Sira, Paquita y su amiga? ¿A dónde van?
La feria.
Una feria.
A la feria, ¿sí? ¿Y qué le pide Paquita a los hombres en la feria? ¿Qué le pide Paquita a los hombres?
Tú quieres comprar.
Les pide, perdón, ¿qué les pide? Le pide a un hombre, pero.
De comprar una horchata.
Una horchata, sí.
Yes.
Ella les pide que alguien, somebody, realmente Ignacio, les pide a Ignacio, pero les pide a los hombres a comprar una horchata a Paquita. She's trying to set, or a Sira. She's trying to set Sira up with a guy,
Right.
okay? Who winds up being this other guy, right? Uno de los hombres. Ignacio, ¿sí? ¿Por qué se fue Sira de la feria? ¿Por qué se fue? ¿Por qué se va?
¿Por divertidos?
No. Now we're talking about se fue de
Se
la
fue.
feria, de la feria.
Divertirse.
Se fueron a la feria
Sí,
para
divertirse.
divertirse.
No,
Divertirse con
Still-
amigos.
her dress got damaged.
Oh, that's right. Stain.
Oh,
I have no idea.
Okay,
Put
sí.
the drink on her.
There. What do we ask?
Paquita le presentó a Ignacio a Sira, right? Paquita introduced them.
Sí.
Empezaron a hablar. Oh, Sira, qué bonita, qué bonito nombre, qué bonito nombre. What a pretty name, what a pretty name. They talk about how she got her name.
Yeah, right.
You may have missed some of that. It kind of goes into the nuances of, people naming
After the saints.
girls after saints, right? Like, the day you were born or the day you're baptized is a certain saint's day because the Catholic Church has certain saints celebrated every day of the calendar year. And she was laughing that, thank God Mom didn't name me after these goofy names of the saint's day.
Short.
Vitorina,
Short.
these other really oddball names, And he says, oh no, I like Sira. Okay. Pero, Sira se fue porque se le arruinó la
ropa, la vestida.
la blusa, sí. O el vestido, claro. El vestido. Ok. Bien. ¿Cuál es la relación entre Ignacio y Sira?
They're engaged. Ellos estaban comprometidas.
Eventually,
Novio.
novio y novia
poco a poco, sí, poco a poco, se convirtieron en novios, ¿verdad? En novios. Y van a casarse. Van a casarse
We're gonna get
los dos, ¿verdad?
Mama. Oh.
Ignacio quiere casarse con Cira.
Wants to.
He wanted to get married to
The
Sarah.
stars.
They were planning to get married. I mean, it takes a little while, right? But obviously, obviamente, en la feria no. En la feria no. Pero bueno, entonces Ignacio viene al taller donde trabaja Cira con flores y salen juntos y estaban planeando la boda. They were planning a wedding. And Paquita kind of oddly says, "You're not excited about these dresses. What's wrong with you? ¿Qué te pasa? ¿Qué te pasa? What's wrong with you? It seems like you just purposely don't want any of these dresses. What's the deal with you, girl?" Well,
Yes.
why do you have to get married? She kind of shrugs it off. Okay. Well, we found out a little more about that later on. ¿Por qué quieren comprar una máquina de escribir? Why do they want to buy a typewriter?
Cira Educación.
Educación.
Trabajar.
Un trabajo nuevo.
Sí, necesita nuevo trabajo. Cira necesita nuevo trabajo. Doña Manuela va a cerrar el taller de coser. Va a cerrar el taller de coser. Entonces, Cira necesita buscar otro empleo, otro trabajo. Y la idea de Ignacio es que ella puede escribir a máquina y trabajar en una oficina como él. Porque él trabaja como funcionario. He's an office worker. Como funcionario, he's an official. They never say what he's an official of. Es funcionario. He's an official. Trabaja con el gobierno. He works on some level with the government. We don't really know what. They're vague about that. Okay. ¿Quién es Ramiro Rivas?
Ramiro Rivas, el jefe máquina de escribir taller.
Ok, en el taller donde se venden las máquinas de escribir. Es un empleado allá. ¿Y cómo se siente Cira de Ramiro? ¿Cómo se siente? Está enamorada. De primera vista. Boom. Literalmente, en el libro, en la novela, es así. A primera vista. Se enamoró la primera vez. La primera vez. Porque debe ser muy guapo, pero bueno. Entonces, ¿cómo se siente Cira sobre aprender a escribir a máquina?
Más o menos.
Más o menos, ¿no?
Así.
Sí, no está muy entusiasmada.
No.
Sí.
No tiene ganas, no tiene un deseo muy fuerte de escribir a máquina. Qué trabajo estúpido. Me gusta coser, no me gusta escribir a máquina. ¿Por qué? ¿Por qué se tiene que usar la meñica? Why do you have to use your pinky? She asks him.
Yeah.
¿Por qué no se usa otro dedo? No. Cada letra, un dedo. Ok. ¿Qué le dijo Cira a Ignacio durante el concierto?
Adiós.
That sums it up.
Sí,
Que no quiere.
Casarse.
Cira le dijo que ella no quiere
Casarse.
casarse con Ignacio, el pobre Ignacio. Y la mamá siempre dice, la mamá de Cira siempre le dice, Ignacio es buen hombre, Ignacio es buen hombre. Qué buen hombre. Pero ella dice, no quiero, mamá, no quiero casarme con Ignacio. Así es. Ella es joven. Ok. Entonces, ¿cómo reaccionó Dolores? Y Dolores es la mamá de Cira. ¿Cómo reaccionó Dolores?
Enojado con Cira.
Estaba
No lo
enojada.
creo.
Estaba muy enojada. Estaba enojadísima. Muy enojada con la decisión. Bueno, ¿qué hizo Cira después de hablar con su mamá de la decisión? About her decision.
Es mi vida. Es mi vida.
Ella dijo, sí, ella le dijo, she told her, le dijo, es mi vida, mamá, es mi vida. Y se fue. Y se fue con Ramiro, ¿no?
Sí.
Se fue al apartamento
Sí,
para quedarse con Ramiro.
sí.
Okay. This is complicated a little by a fact that we know early on. Maybe you didn't catch it. Maybe you did. Her mother is very sensitive to the fact that she's just going off with this guy that she's not married to yet because
Same thing happened to her.
The same thing.
He was a solo padre.
same thing happened to her. She sees her decisions repeating in her daughter, that her daughter's falling for somebody. And actually, remember when the mom comes to the apartment and says, we're going to meet your father. And she tells her, you look like a fulana. Fulana means a whore. Go wash your face, you como fulana. Fulana is a kind of a nicer way of saying you look like a slut. That's what she tells her daughter. But she's not happy with the situation. Porque Ignacio es buen hombre, because Ignacio is a good guy. Why do you not take the good guy that's there in front of you? Well, okay.
Because he's boring.
I love when she says,
She likes the green eyes on the other guy. Okay, Ramiro. Okay. Okay. ¿Quién es el padre de Cira?
muy rico.
Muy rico.
Es un rico.
Rico.
Es un hombre muy rico. Es gerente. Es el jefe
Café, sí.
de una fábrica. Una fábrica, factory. Es el jefe de una fábrica. Y él dice que él cree
Ah,
que los trabajadores van a matarlo.
yeah.
Kill him.
Gonna kill him.
He believes the workers are going to
Kill him.
Kill him.
kill him. And he says this in a very matter-of-fact way. He was not emotional about it. It was not Dolores who approached the dad. It was the dad who contacted Dolores and said, I want you to bring our daughter here. He had never met her. It was a forbidden marriage because he came from money and Dolores did not come from money. Modista. She was just a girl working in,
That is.
designer shop. Not even the owner of. She's not even at the high level of Doña Manuela. Okay? He's pretty sure he's going to be offed. And he talks about sindicato. And sindicato means a union. We would think that sounds like syndicate. It is. Okay? El sindicato. Okay, so the syndicate, the members of the union, he's pretty sure they're going to put a bullet through him because he sees what is coming. And he even advises, he does two things.
Believe.
He advises them to
Leave.
leave.
Leave the country.
He
Spain.
sees war coming. He says, they're going to kill me. war is going to come and people are going to start just killing each other. Because he would, as a businessman, be more up to date on the political machinations going on at the time. And he sees what is coming. And he says, this is going to degenerate and you should both get out of here. And what does he give? ¿Qué le dio a Sira? What did he give to Sira?
Muchos de dinero
And
y
Y joyas. Sí, Susana, y joyas. Because he figures he's going to be offed, and this child will not be in a will, because she is illegitimate. He's got other children. They don't really say that, but you imply that because, you know, they couldn't get married. He was promised to somebody from a wealthy family. So he knows this child will not be provided in the will. He just sends her off with cash, which won't be traceable
Mucho oro.
by the family, and jewelry, which
Mucho
again,
oro.
mucho oro, yeah, oro, perlas, diamantes. He sends her off with a hunk, thinking, okay, at least it's my attempt to provide for you in the untimely event of my demise. He turns out to have been a very smart cookie. Okay, bien. Vale. El misterio. Well, it took a little bit longer, but did you get all of that happened while it was happening in the movie? Could you guess at a lot of it? Guess at half of it?
I was cheating a bit and looking at the English.
yeah, the subtitles helped.
Okay.
It's like, okay, they're having this discussion, but yeah, the music and the close up on the green eyes and all that. But
Yeah.
Yeah, you kind of could get that.
yeah, they're saying something.
So now she is going to go off on a big adventure.
Morocco.
Of course, she goes straight with all this cash and all these jewels, straight to
Boyfriend.
Ramiro. Yeah. If that were my daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And his bright idea is, hey, we're going to take this and we're going to
Invest in a store.
invest it. We're going to get a franchise, essentially, right? On this typewriter academy thing, because you know that mechanization in the office, that's the way it's going. And we're going to get this started someplace else. It won't be Spain. So at the end of the episode, they're leaving for
Morocco.
Marruecos. Marruecos es Morocco. They're leaving for Morocco. It was very common in those days because, of course, there was a little colony, and the French and the Spaniards always kind of fiddled over, fought over a bit, you know, parts of Morocco. But there was Franco's troops were in Morocco. That's where they swept up from. They were outside of Spain before the war. So they're kind of quartered down there right now. And they're headed off for Morocco to start this business. You know, he tells us, somos empresarios, we are business people, Ramiro tells her. Yeah, we'll see how that works out. In these days of very scant birth control.
Yes.
And yes, those days. Okay. So, you know, either leave me something in the chat box or send me an email about whether you want to watch that next episode or not. I have no personal agenda in it, so you will not hurt my feelings if you say, no, that was enough. It was kind of too hard. There are other things we can watch, but that's it. Okay, bien. Vamos a introducir un poquito. We're going to introduce a little bit more about Por Empara. You saw some examples of Por Empara. Some examples of Por Empara. Por Empara, and we'll show you some things. Well, what did they say in that? What did they say in that little short grammar video about Por Empara? That para delineates an action that comes first And when you use para to connect a second action, that means the second action is happening afterwards, okay? Because por un para is a very complicated topic, and it's loaded with rules that people feel they must memorize, though that's the way I would, because you had to. What they're trying to give you is some simple tools rather than the 15 rules to memorize, to kind of do a black and white comparison in your mind. If para is separating two parts of a sentence, and one action has an something that follows sequentially afterwards, you will need para. But if they happen kind of at the same time or are balanced out, you're more likely to use por. Now that's an easy 50-50 rule, and it won't work for every situation, but it will work for a bunch. So I will be, you need not take notes, I will be sending you this set of slides. And we're going to take a look at this, and I'll give you some online things to try with por and para. And the reason it's kind of important, people really dread por and para the way they dread ser en estar. Only worse, because it is harder than ser en estar. It really is harder. But when you think of it as that 50-50 thing of sequential, one thing happening after another, or one thing following, one action following, coming after an action, para, versus things happening simultaneously, por, it makes it a little bit easier. So, okay, we've got this idea of para. What we want to express with para is that it indicates a destination or a goal. It means for when you're indicating a goal, something you're working towards. It points to what happens next in the future. The information after para follows or flows from the activity in the previous part of the sentence. Por ejemplo, and I cannot use para ejemplo, it's por ejemplo. For example, el regalo que compré, the gift that I bought. Here's the first action. El regalo que compré es para mis hijos. I went and bought this first. And who gets it, the gift afterwards? Número dos, number two gets it afterwards. We need para there because hijos, they're receiving that first activity of el regalo que compré, the gift that I bought. I did this activity and I'm going to hand, a gift, and I'm going to hand it off. So the hijos, they are the destination. They receive the gift after I buy it. Do you see how one follows the other? That indicates we need para in there to say for. Para doesn't always mean for. It can mean more than that. Por doesn't always mean for. Okay, practico mi español. Practico, practico, practico. I do this action. Practico, practico mi español para hablar mejor. I do it to get to this endpoint, to be able to
Speak well.
So here, para doesn't really so much mean for. I practiced my Spanish for to speak. No, in order to. In order to speak. And being able to speak, that's my goal. After I'm done with practico, 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 I want to be able to do this. Hablar mejor. Hablar español muy bien. Con fluidez. Con cualquiera persona. I want to be able to talk to anybody. That is my goal. So I have a para inserted there. Hago la tarea para miércoles. I do the homework for, that's the day of the week.
Wednesday.
I'm doing the homework for Wednesday. That means a deadline. I'm doing the homework, working on the homework, working on the homework. When is it going to be due? It will be due on Wednesday. Para, when you talk about a time period, para or por, both can be used with a time period. When you use para with a time period, it means it's a deadline. It's a destination. It's an endpoint. Para with a time period indicates a deadline, when it is due, when it must be completed. Okay, el avión sale para Los Angeles. The plane is leaving for Los Angeles. Plane is leaving, and when it finally comes down, it will wind up in the destination of Los Angeles. I could replace para with the word a. A Los Angeles, sale a. It leaves to get to this place, right? If you mean the destination where you're going to wind up at the end of the trip, para is okay to use. Okay, another example of that is not a plane, but we're using the verb instead of sale, we're using vamos. Vamos para el parque. We're leaving for the park, meaning where we want to wind up is
El parque.
en el parque. En el parque. So when we use para with a location, it means a destination, the place where you want to wind up in the end. When we use para with a time period, it means the due date, the deadline. Again, it's a destination. Okay. So I'll let you read through these at your leisure later when I send you this via email, the rules for para. Okay. Para and por can both be used with time, but they indicate different meanings. Para and por can be used with places, geographical locations, but they express different ideas. Okay, so I'm going to let you go through all the rules later. We're going to take a quick look at por before we wind up. Para is a destination and endpoint. Por has not a specific endpoint in mind. It indicates through, along, just plain old around a place. So instead of being a specific place like El Parque, right, that's where we want to wind up, we're going to finish at this place. Por el parque would mean through the park or by the park, along the side of the park. It wouldn't mean that you're going to stop there. You're just going through. Por indicates different ideas than para. The two ideas that are connected by the word por are likely to be happening simultaneously, not the result of one or the other. Okay? When we come back next week, we're going to use some pictorial things. You can kind of preview them to get examples of how por and para change the meanings of a sentence. And then I give you the rules for por. Actually, I think I should move this up. Do I have it? No, it'll be after the examples. So you can watch, or you can check out all those rules and read those on your own. But there are definite rules with por and definite rules with para. But if you've got that idea of one action following another, para will connect the two ideas, or two things happening pretty much simultaneously, por connects those ideas. And then we'll check out, you know, some oddball things that you just have to memorize, and we'll do some guessing with fill in the blank. So you'll get all this so you can preview it, check it out, practice with it a little bit. ¿Está bien?
Sí.
You good with that? Por un para used to scare the bejesus out of me. I kid you not. Even when I was a 3rd and 4th year student, it would scare the bejesus out of me. Oh my God, I've got to take a test on por un para. Oh my God. Oh my God, worse yet, I've got to speak using it. Oh my God. And now all the rules have numbers by them and they're floating through my head. That did not help. That did not help. What did help was to see lots of examples, because eventually you want to express an idea. If I want to say, vamos por el lago, it means we're going along the lake. We're walking along the side of the lake. We're not going into the water. Vamos por el lago. We're going along the lakeside water. So you're probably walking on the shore. But vamos para el lago is we want to wind up at the lake. We're going to go in the water. We're going to enjoy ourselves and maybe have a picnic. Okay? Because we're going to wind up there. Para el lago. But por el lago, oh, there's a path. We're following the path. We're walking along the shore. We're not staying in one place there. We're just going along through it. Y eso es. And a lot of other little phrases that just use por and just use para, and you just get used to those, and we'll talk about those next week. ¿Está bien? Magnifico. Muy bien. We will let people have some time to talk it out because I'm at the hour and a half and I don't want to violate too much.